Dr. Amy Carter knelt beside the strange crystal object, her breath fogging up inside her helmet. The dead world of Kepler 442c stretched out around her like a gray wasteland. Nothing had lived here for thousands of years, but something about this place felt important. The crystal was bigger than her head and glowed with a soft blue light. Amy had never seen anything like it in her 20 years of studying alien artifacts. She called to her team over the radio. "Jake, come look at this. I think we found something big." Lieutenant Jake Morrison walked over, his heavy boots crunching on the dusty ground. He was the ship's navigator and knew more about star maps than anyone else on the crew. When he saw the crystal, he stopped walking. "What is that thing?" Jake asked. "I'm not sure yet," Amy said. She pulled out her scanner and ran it over the crystal. The readings made her eyes go wide. "This is old, Jake. Really old. Maybe 50,000 years. Jake whistled softly. "That's older than any alien tech we've found before." Amy carefully lifted the crystal. It was heavier than it looked, but she managed to carry it back to their ship, the Meridian. The ship was small, but had everything they needed for research, missions like this one. In the ship's lab, Amy placed the crystal on a table under bright lights. The whole research team gathered around to look at it. There was Dr. Ben Hayes, who studied alien languages, and Professor Lisa White, who was an expert at reading alien writing. "Look at this," Amy said, pointing to patterns inside the crystal. "There are symbols in there, thousands of them." Ben leaned closer. "They look like star charts. See how they're arranged in groups?" Jake pulled up a hologram of their local star map and compared it to the crystal. His face went pale. "Amy, I think this shows our whole galaxy, but there's something wrong with it." "What do you mean?" Amy asked. Jake pointed to a section of the crystal. "This should be where our solar system is, but there's nothing there. It's completely empty." Amy looked where Jake was pointing. He was right. The crystal showed thousands of stars and symbols, but where Earth's sun should be, there was just empty space. "Maybe it's broken," Lisa suggested. "No," Jake said, shaking his head. "Look at the stars around it. They're all there. Alpha Centauri, Wolf 359, Barnard Star. Everything except our sun." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "Run a full scan on the crystal. I want to know everything about it." The team worked for hours. The crystal was made of materials they had never seen before. The symbols inside it were created by some kind of advanced technology that could store massive amounts of information in a tiny space. Ben was the first to make progress with the symbols. "I think I figured out what some of these mean," he said. "Each star has a symbol next to it. They seem to be categories or labels." "Categories for what?" Amy asked. "I'm not sure yet, but look at this." Ben showed them his work. "This symbol appears next to stars that we know have peaceful alien races. This other symbol is next to stars with more aggressive species." Jake was still studying the missing section where Earth should be. "Amy, what if this wasn't a mistake? What if someone deliberately left us out?" "Why would they do that?" Lisa asked. "I don't know," Jake said, "but this map is 50,000 years old. That means someone was watching our galaxy long before humans ever left Earth." Amy sat down and stared at the crystal. The blue light seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "We need to take this back to Earth. The Research Institute has better equipment than we do." "Do you think we should tell them what we found?" Ben asked. Amy thought about it. "We tell them we found an ancient star map, but we don't mention the missing solar system until we understand it better. Jake nodded. Good idea. This could cause panic if people think aliens have been ignoring us for 50,000 years. The team packed up their equipment and prepared to leave Kepler 442c as their ship lifted off from the gray planet. Amy looked back at the spot where they had found the crystal. She wondered what other secrets were buried on dead worlds across the galaxy. During the long trip back to Earth, Amy spent hours studying the crystal. The more she looked at it, the more certain she became that their solar system had been deliberately removed from the map. But why? Jake joined her in the lab one evening. I've been thinking about what you said, about someone deliberately leaving us out. And? Amy asked. If this map is some kind of catalog of inhabited worlds and we're not on it, what does that mean? Were we not important enough to include, or were we too important to show? Amy had been wondering the same thing. I think we're going to find out soon enough. When they reached Earth, Amy was the first one off the ship. She carried the crystal carefully to the Terran Research Institute. The building was huge and filled with the best scientists from all over the world. Dr. Hayes met them at the entrance. Amy, I heard you found something interesting out there. That's putting it mildly, Amy said. She led him to a secure lab and placed the crystal on the examination table. Within hours, word had spread throughout the institute. Scientists came from other departments to see the ancient artifact. Everyone agreed it was the oldest piece of alien technology ever discovered. But Amy kept the secret about Earth's missing solar system. She only told Ben, Lisa, and Jake. They agreed to study that part of the mystery privately while the other scientists worked on translating the rest of the map. As Amy fell asleep that first night back on Earth, she stared out her window at the stars. Somewhere up there, 50,000 years ago, someone had created a map of the galaxy. They had included thousands of worlds and civilizations, but they had left out Earth. Amy was determined to find out why. 3 weeks had passed since Amy brought the crystal back to Earth. The Terran Research Institute buzzed with activity as scientists worked around the clock to understand the ancient artifact. Amy had set up a special team with Ben, Lisa, and Jake to study the mystery of Earth's missing solar system. They worked in a small lab away from the main research area. Amy wanted to keep their discovery secret until they understood what it meant. The crystal sat on the table between them, still, glowing with its soft blue light. I think I've figured out the symbol system, Ben said, looking up from his computer. Each star on the map has one of 3 symbols next to it. Lisa leaned forward. What do they mean? Ben pointed to his screen. The first symbol looks like a circle with a line through it. The second looks like an eye. The third looks like a box with lines around it. Jake studied the symbols. Those could mean anything. How do you know what they represent? I compared them to what we know about the star systems, Ben explained. The circle with the line appears next to stars with peaceful alien races, species that follow galactic laws and don't cause trouble. Amy nodded. That makes sense. What about the eye symbol? The eye appears next to stars with species that are being watched closely, races that might be dangerous or unpredictable. And the box? Lisa asked. Ben's face grew serious. The box symbol appears next to only a few stars. From what I can tell, these are systems with species that have been contained or restricted in some way. Jake whistled. So this isn't just a map. It's a classification system. Someone was keeping track of every species in the galaxy and deciding how dangerous they were. Amy felt a chill. If Earth had been on this map, which symbol do you think we would have gotten? The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Lisa said. "We still don't know why Earth was left off the map." Amy pulled up a hologram showing the area around Earth's solar system. "Look at this. Every star within 50 light years of us is on the crystal map. Some have the circle symbol, some have the eye. But right here, where our sun should be, there's nothing." Ben ran his finger along the hologram. "It's like someone carefully erased us from the map. Or never put us on it in the first place," Jake added. Amy had been thinking about this for days. "What if whoever made this map knew about us but decided we were too dangerous to include?" "Too dangerous for what?" Lisa asked. "Too dangerous for other species to know about," Amy said. "Think about it. If this map was used to share information between alien races, leaving Earth off it would mean nobody would know we existed." Jake's eyes widened. "You're saying someone deliberately hid us from the rest of the galaxy?" "It's possible," Amy said. "But we need more evidence." Lisa had been quiet, studying the symbols on her tablet. "I found something else," she said. "The symbols aren't random. They form patterns." She showed them her screen. "Look at how the symbols are grouped. The circle symbols are usually clustered together. The eye symbols are scattered around. But the box symbols are always isolated, far from other inhabited systems." Ben looked at the pattern. "Like a quarantine?" "Exactly," Lisa said. "Whoever made this map didn't just classify species. They organized the galaxy to keep dangerous ones away from peaceful ones." Amy stared at the crystal. "But if we're not on the map at all, where does that put us?" "Maybe we're in a category all our own," Jake said quietly. The team worked late into the night, studying every detail of the crystal map. The more they learned, the more questions they had. The map showed evidence of an advanced civilization that had been watching and organizing the galaxy for thousands of years. "I'm calling them the architects," Amy said. "Whoever they were, they built this system to manage galactic civilization." "But where are they now?" Ben asked. "There's no symbol for their home system either." Lisa pulled up another section of the map. "Maybe they're here. This area has symbols I don't recognize. They're different from the three main categories." Amy looked at the strange symbols. They were more complex than the others, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them. "We need to find more artifacts," Amy said. "This crystal is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle." Jake had been quiet, studying the area around Earth again. "Amy, what if hiding us wasn't about protecting other species from us?" "What do you mean?" "What if it was about protecting us from them?" Amy felt her heart skip a beat. "You think the architects were trying to keep other aliens away from Earth?" "Think about it," Jake said. "If we were considered too dangerous to put on the map, maybe the architects thought other species would try to destroy us before we became a threat." Ben shook his head. "But that doesn't make sense. 50,000 years ago, humans were barely using tools. We weren't a threat to anyone." "Unless the architects could see something we couldn't," Lisa said. "Maybe they could predict how dangerous we would become." Amy looked around the room at her team. They were all thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. "You're suggesting the architects looked at early humans and saw something that scared them?" Amy said. "Scared them enough to hide us from the entire galaxy," Jake confirmed. Lisa pulled up historical data about human development 50,000 years ago. That was around the time humans started migrating out of Africa. We were developing new tools, new hunting techniques. "And we were starting to dominate every environment we entered," Ben added. Even with primitive technology, humans were incredibly successful. Amy sat back in her chair. So the architects saw early humans and decided we were too dangerous to include in their galactic civilization. But not dangerous enough to destroy, Jake said. They just hit us. The question is, Lisa said, what happens when the rest of the galaxy finds out we exist? Amy looked at the crystal, its blue light pulsing steadily. I think we're about to find out. Our radio signals have been traveling through space for over a century. Someone out there has probably detected us by... Now, Ben's face went pale. And when they check their copy of this map and see that Earth isn't on it, they'll wonder why, Amy finished. They'll wonder what was so special about us that the architects felt the need to hide us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been hidden from the galaxy for 50,000 years. But that secret was about to be revealed. Amy stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city stretching to the horizon. Billions of people going about their lives, unaware that they had been deliberately concealed from the stars. We need to tell people, Amy said. Humanity deserves to know the truth. Are you sure? Jake asked. This could change everything. Amy turned back to her team. Everything's about to change anyway. At least this way we'll be prepared. Captain Roy Jenkins stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, watching the stars through the main viewport. 3 months had passed since Amy's team discovered the crystal map. Now the government had put together a special mission to investigate other sites mentioned in the ancient artifact. Captain, we're approaching the coordinates, said Lieutenant Sarah Bell from the navigation station. Roy nodded. Take us in slowly. We don't know what we're going to find. Dr. Kate Adams joined him at the viewport. She was the mission's lead archaeologist and had studied every detail of Amy's crystal. According to the map, there should be some kind of structure in this system. Any idea what kind of structure? Roy asked. Kate shook her head. The crystal shows a symbol here, but we haven't figured out what it means yet. Colonel Sam Miller, the mission's military advisor, walked onto the bridge. He was a careful man who always expected trouble. Captain, I recommend we approach with shields up. We don't know if these sites are still active. Roy agreed. Shields up. Full sensor sweep of the system. The Pathfinder moved slowly through the star system. It was empty except for a few dead planets and an asteroid belt, but their sensors picked up something unusual near the edge of the system. Captain, I'm reading artificial structures on the 3rd planet, reported Ensign Mike. Torres from the sensor station. They're old, but they're definitely not natural. Roy felt his pulse quicken. How old? Hard to tell from here, sir, but the energy readings match what we found on the crystal. Kate grabbed Roy's arm. This is it. This is what the architects left behind. The ship moved closer to the planet. Through the viewport, they could see strange towers rising from the surface. The towers were made of the same crystal material as the map, and they glowed with the same blue light. Take us down, Roy ordered. The landing party included Roy, Kate, Sam, and Dr. Alex Turner, a specialist in alien technology. They wore full environmental suits as they stepped onto the planet's surface. The towers were even more impressive up close. They stood over 100 feet tall and were covered in symbols similar to those on the crystal map. But these symbols moved, shifting and changing as they watched. Some kind of display system, Alex said, running his scanner over the nearest tower. These symbols are showing real-time information. Kate was studying the patterns. Look, at this. The symbols match star positions in our local area of the galaxy. Sam kept his weapon ready as he scanned the area for threats. Are these things still working after 50,000 years? It looks like it, Alex replied. The power source is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's almost like the crystal itself generates energy. Roy looked around the site. There were 12 towers arranged in a perfect circle. In the center was a smaller structure that looked like a control station. Let's check out the center building, Roy said. Inside the control station, they found more crystal displays showing star maps. But these maps were different from the one Amy had discovered. They showed the same area of space, but with additional information. Kate gasped when she saw them. Roy, look at this. These maps show Earth. Roy hurried over to where Kate was pointing. Sure enough, there was their solar system, clearly marked on the display. But something was wrong with it. Why does Earth look different here? Sam asked. Alex studied the display carefully. I think this shows what the architects actually knew about our system. The original crystal map Amy found was the public version, the one shared with other species. But this is the real map, Kate said. The one the architects kept for themselves. Roy felt a chill. So they did know about us. They just chose to hide us from everyone else. The team spent hours studying the control station. They found that the towers were part of a monitoring network that watched over developing civilizations. The architects had built similar stations throughout the galaxy. This is incredible, Kate said. They were watching hundreds of species, guiding their development, preventing wars. Alex pulled up more displays. Look at this. They have detailed records of every species they monitored, behavioral patterns, technological development, threat assessments. Sam studied the threat assessments. Most species are rated as low or moderate threats. But look at these few here. They're marked as extreme threats. Roy looked at the species marked as extreme threats. They were the ones from star systems that had the box symbol on the original map, the ones that had been contained or destroyed. What made them so dangerous? Roy asked. Kate was working on translating the architect records. From what I can understand, these species were either extremely aggressive or had technology that could threaten galactic stability. What about humans? Sam asked. What was our threat rating? Alex searched through the records until he found Earth's file. His face went pale as he read it. What does it say? Roy demanded. According to the architects, Alex said quietly, humans were rated as unprecedented. What does that mean? Kate asked. Alex continued reading. They say humans showed a combination of intelligence, adaptability, and aggression that they had never encountered before. Even with primitive technology, humans were expanding faster than any other species they had observed. Roy felt his stomach drop. So, we were too dangerous to include in their galactic community. It gets worse, Alex said. The architects predicted that if humans were allowed to develop freely, we would either conquer the galaxy or force other species to unite against us. Sam laughed bitterly. So they decided to hide us instead. Kate was studying more of the records. Wait, there's something else here. The architects didn't just hide us from other species, they actively worked to slow down our development. What do you mean? Roy asked. They influenced our early history, Kate explained, prevented certain technological advances, caused conflicts that set us back, even guided some natural disasters. Alex's scanner beeped as he discovered another section of the control station. Roy, you need to see this. I found records of other monitoring stations. Roy walked over to where Alex was working. The display showed the locations of dozens of similar stations throughout the galaxy. They built a whole network, Alex said. Every major civilization had one of these stations watching over them. Are they all still active? Sam asked. Alex checked the status displays. Most of them are still online. The architects built these things to last. Roy realized what this meant. If these stations are still working, then other species might know we exist by now. Our radio signals would have triggered their sensors. Kate looked worried. And when they check their records and see that Earth wasn't on the original maps, they'll know the architects were hiding us, Sam finished. They'll want to know why. Roy made a decision. We need to visit more of these stations. We need to understand the full scope of what the architects were doing. Over the next several weeks, the Pathfinder visited monitoring stations in 3 other star systems. Each one told the same story. The architects had been watching over galactic civilization for millions of years, guiding peaceful species and containing dangerous ones. But Earth was unique. The architects had never encountered a species like humans before. They were too dangerous to monitor normally, too advanced to contain, and too unpredictable to destroy safely. So they had chosen a different path. They hid humanity from the galaxy and worked to slow down human development, hoping that by the time humans reached the stars, they would have evolved beyond their dangerous nature. Roy stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder as they prepared to return to Earth. In his hands, he held data crystals containing everything they had learned about the Architect Network. "Captain," Sarah said from the navigation station, "I'm picking up unusual energy readings from the edge of the system." Roy looked at the sensor display. Something was approaching their position, something big. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Roy Jenkins of the Earthship Pathfinder," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Please identify yourself." The response came in perfect English. "This is Commander Zara of the Centauri Coalition. We need to talk." The alien ship was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, made of the same crystal material as the architect stations. Commander Zara and her team came aboard the Pathfinder in what could only be described as a tense, first contact situation. Zara was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. She wore a simple uniform that seemed to shift colors in the light. Her translator device allowed her to speak perfect English. "Captain Jenkins," Zara said, as she stepped onto the bridge. "We have been monitoring your activities at the architect stations. We need to discuss what you have discovered." Roy tried to stay calm, but his heart was racing. This was humanity's first real contact with an alien species. "Commander Zara, we're honored to meet you. We had no idea other species were still using the Architect Network." Zara's expression was serious. "The network has been maintaining galactic peace for 50,000 years. Your presence here threatens that peace." Colonel Sam Miller stepped forward. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're just trying to understand why Earth was left off the ancient star maps." "That is exactly the problem," Zara replied. "Earth was hidden for good reasons. Now that you have discovered the truth, those reasons no longer apply." Dr. Kate Adams joined the conversation. "What reasons? Why did the architects hide us?" Zara looked at Kate for a long moment. "Because they were afraid of you." The bridge fell silent. Roy had suspected this, but hearing it from an alien species made it real. "Afraid of humans?" Roy asked. 50,000 years ago, we were barely using stone tools. The architects could see potential," Zara explained. They studied every species in the galaxy for millions of years. They knew how to predict which ones would become threats. Dr. Alex Turner had been quietly recording everything. What made humans different from other species? Zara seemed to consider her words carefully. Most species develop in predictable ways. They become peaceful as they advance or they destroy themselves. Humans did neither. What do you mean? Kate asked. Humans became more dangerous as they advanced, Zara said. Most species slow down their expansion when they encounter obstacles. Humans turn obstacles into advantages. Roy felt a mix of pride and worry. Is that really so threatening? Zara's dark eyes met his. Captain, in the 50,000 years since the architects hid your world, humans have gone from stone tools to spaceflight. That level of advancement is unprecedented. Sam crossed his arms. So what? We're explorers, not conquerors. Are you? Zara asked. Your species has fought wars throughout its entire history. You have weapons that could destroy planets. You expand into every environment you encounter. Kate stepped forward. But we've also created art, music, literature. We help each other. We form alliances. Yes, Zara agreed. That is what makes you so dangerous. You are capable of both great violence and great cooperation. The architects had never seen that combination before. Roy was beginning to understand. So they hid us to protect other species. And to protect you, Zara added. If the galaxy had known about humans 50,000 years ago, they would have united to destroy your world before you could develop. Alex looked up from his recordings. But you're here now, talking to us peacefully. We're not destroying each other. Zara smiled for the first time. That is because the architects were partially successful. They slowed your development enough that other species had time to advance as well. Now we are better prepared to deal with humanity. Deal with us how? Sam asked suspiciously. That remains to be seen, Zara replied. Much depends on what you do next. Roy realized this conversation could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. What do you want from us? I want to show you something, Zara said. The architect home world, the place where all of this began. Kate's eyes widened. The architect homeworld still exists? Not as it once was, Zara explained. But their records are still there. The complete history of their guardianship over the galaxy. Roy made a quick decision. We'll come with you, but we're bringing our research team. Of course, Zara agreed. Dr. Adams, Dr. Turner, your expertise will be valuable. The journey to the architect homeworld took 2 weeks. During that time, Zara shared more about galactic civilization. The Centauri Coalition was an alliance of peaceful species that had grown up under architect guidance. They had maintained the monitoring network since the architects disappeared. Where did the architects go? Kate asked during one of their conversations. They evolved beyond physical existence, Zara explained. But before they left, they gave us the responsibility of maintaining their work. Alex was fascinated by the Coalition's technology. How many species are in your alliance? 237, Zara replied. All working together to maintain peace in the galaxy. Sam remained suspicious. And what happens to species that don't want to join your alliance? Zara's expression darkened. Species that threaten galactic peace are contained. If necessary, they are stopped permanently. The architect homeworld was a massive crystal planet orbiting a dying star. The entire surface was covered in the same glowing towers they had seen at the monitoring stations, but these were enormous, reaching up into the atmosphere. "This is incredible," Kate breathed as their ships approached the planet. "The architects built this world to store all of their knowledge," Zara explained. "Everything they learned about managing galactic civilization is here." They landed near the largest tower complex. Inside, the walls were covered with moving symbols and displays showing star maps from across the galaxy. But these maps went back millions of years, showing the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Alex immediately began studying the displays. "This is the most advanced computer system I've ever seen. It's like the entire planet is one giant database." Kate found records of the architects themselves. They had once been a physical species, but over millions of years, they had evolved into beings of pure energy. They spent their entire existence guiding younger species. "Why?" Roy asked. "What made them want to manage the galaxy?" Zara led them deeper into the complex. The architects lived through the Great Chaos, a time when advanced species fought wars that nearly destroyed the galaxy. She showed them records of the ancient conflict. Entire star systems had been destroyed. Billions of lives were lost. Advanced technology had been turned into weapons of incredible power. The survivors realized that without guidance, intelligent species would eventually destroy themselves and everything around them, Zara continued. The architects devoted themselves to preventing another great chaos. Kate studied the records of species that had been contained or destroyed. Some of these civilizations were incredibly advanced. Why couldn't they be reasoned with? "Some species cannot be reasoned with," Zara replied. "They see cooperation as weakness. They believe might makes right." Alex found the section about humanity. The records were extensive, covering 50,000 years of observation. "They watched us constantly. Every major event in human history is recorded here." Roy read over Alex's shoulder. The architects had indeed influenced human development. They had prevented several technological breakthroughs that could have led to early spaceflight. They had even influenced the outcomes of certain wars. They were trying to give us time to mature, Roy realized. "Yes," Zara agreed. The architects hoped that by the time humans reached the stars, they would have learned to control their aggressive nature. Sam studied the threat assessments. "But they never changed our rating from unprecedented. Even as we developed philosophy, art, and science, they still considered us dangerous." "Because you are," Zara said simply. "But dangerous does not necessarily mean evil. Fire is dangerous, but it can also provide warmth and light." Kate found the final entries in the human file. The architects left a recommendation. They said humanity should be given a chance to prove themselves, but under careful observation. "That is why I am here," Zara explained. "The coalition has decided to make contact with humanity. But your species will be watched closely." Roy felt the weight of responsibility. "What happens if we fail your test?" Zara's expression was grave. "Then the galaxy will do what it should have done 50,000 years ago." Alex looked up from the records. "There's something else here. The architects left instructions for humanity, things they wanted us to know." "What kind of instructions?" Kate asked. Alex's face was pale as he read. "They're warnings about threats that are coming. Things that even the coalition doesn't know about." Zara moved quickly to Alex's station. "What threats?" "The architects detected something beyond the edge of the galaxy," Alex read. "Something that watches and waits. They called it The Devourers. Roy felt a chill. What are the Devourers? Alex continued reading. A species that consumes entire galaxies. The architects believed they would eventually find our galaxy. And when they do, Kate read over Alex's shoulder. Only the most adaptable and dangerous species will have any chance of survival. Zara stared at the display in shock. The Coalition was never told about this. Roy understood now. That's why the architects hid humanity. Not just to protect the galaxy from us, but to preserve us for when we would be needed. They knew that. Eventually, being dangerous would be an advantage. Sam realized. Alex found more files. The architects left detailed plans, ways to prepare. Admiral Grace Thompson sat in the secure briefing room deep beneath the Terran Research Institute. Around the table were the most important leaders from Earth's government and military. Captain Roy Jenkins had returned from his mission with news. That would change everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Thompson began, what you're about to hear is classified at the highest level. Captain Jenkins, please begin your report. Roy stood up and activated the holographic display. Images of the architect homeworld appeared above the table. 3 days ago, we made first contact with an alien species called the Centauri Coalition. They've been maintaining the architect monitoring network for the past 50,000 years. President Janet Mitchell leaned forward. And what did they tell you about why Earth was hidden? The truth is more complex than we thought, Roy replied. Yes, the architects hid us because they considered humans dangerous, but that wasn't the only reason. Roy showed them the records from the architect homeworld. The architects were preparing for a threat that hasn't arrived yet. Something they called the Devourers. General Frank Wilson studied the display. What kind of threat? Dr. Kate Adams joined Roy at the front of the room. According to the architect records, the Devourers are a species that consumes entire galaxies. They move from galaxy to galaxy, destroying everything in their path. And the architects knew they were coming? Asked Secretary of Defense Helen Carter. The architects detected signs of them beyond the edge of our galaxy, Kate explained. They estimated the Devourers would arrive in approximately 50 to 100,000 years. Admiral Thompson felt a chill. So the architects hid humanity as some kind of secret weapon? Roy nodded. They believed that when the Devourers arrived, only the most adaptable and dangerous species would have any chance of fighting them. Humans fit that description. President Mitchell stood up and walked to the window. So we weren't hidden because we were too dangerous for galactic civilization. We were hidden because we weren't dangerous enough yet. The architects wanted us to develop our full potential without interference, Kate confirmed. They needed us to become the species they predicted we could be. Dr. Alex Turner, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. There's more. The architect records include detailed plans for preparing the galaxy to fight the Devourers, but it requires cooperation between all species, including humans, General Wilson frowned. Cooperation. I thought you said we were supposed to be their secret weapon. We are, Roy replied. But even humans can't fight an entire galaxy-consuming species alone. The plan requires the Coalition's peaceful species to provide support and resources while humans provide military leadership and tactical innovation. Admiral Thompson studied the architect plans. What makes the architects think humans would be better at fighting than species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years? Kate pulled up human military history on the display. Look at our track record. Humans have fought wars in every environment on Earth. We've adapted our tactics to fight in forests, deserts, oceans, mountains, even in space. Most alien species have only fought in their home environments. Plus, Alex added. Humans think differently about warfare. Most species fight to defend territory or resources. Humans fight for ideas, for beliefs, for the survival of others. That makes us unpredictable. President Mitchell returned to her seat. Commander Zara from the Coalition. What does she think about all this? Roy hesitated. She's cautious. The Coalition has maintained peace for 50,000 years using the architect system. The idea of preparing for war goes against everything they believe in. But they're willing to work with us? Admiral Thompson asked. They don't have a choice, Roy replied. The architect records are clear. Without human involvement, the galaxy will fall to the devourers. General Wilson pulled up tactical displays. How much time do we have to prepare? Kate checked her notes. The architect estimates were made 50,000 years ago. Based on their observations, the devourers could arrive any time in the next 50,000 years. That's not very specific, Secretary Carter observed. The architects weren't sure because the devourers don't move at a constant speed, Alex explained. They slow down when they encounter resistance, speed up when they don't. Our galaxy is full of advanced civilizations, so they might take longer to reach us. Admiral Thompson made a decision. We need to send a delegation to meet with the Coalition leadership. If we're going to prepare for this threat, we need to start building alliances now. President Mitchell agreed. But we also need to prepare our own people. This information will eventually become public. Earth citizens deserve to know why they were hidden from the galaxy. Roy looked around the room. There's something else you should know. The Coalition has been debating what to do about humanity for decades. Some members think we should be contained like other dangerous species. And others? General Wilson asked. Others think we should be given a chance to prove ourselves, Roy replied. Our actions in the coming years will determine which group wins that debate. Kate activated another section of the display. The architect records include assessments of human potential. They believe that under the right circumstances, humans could become the most effective military force in galactic history. And under the wrong circumstances? Secretary Carter asked. Kate's expression was grim. They believed we could become worse than the devourers. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Humanity's future in the galaxy depended on choices they hadn't even known they were making. Admiral Thompson broke the silence. Captain Jenkins, I want you to return to the Coalition and begin formal negotiations. Dr. Adams, Dr. Turner, you'll accompany him as technical advisors. What about the monitoring stations? Alex asked. Should we continue studying them? Yes, but carefully, Admiral Thompson replied. We need to understand the full scope of the architect network, and we need to find out if there are other hidden species like us. President Mitchell stood up. I'll be addressing the world leaders next week. It's time to tell humanity the truth about our place in the galaxy. Roy gathered his materials. Admiral, there's one more thing. Commander Zara mentioned that some Coalition species have been detecting our radio signals for decades. They've been debating whether to make contact. What changed their minds? General Wilson asked. Our discovery of the crystal map, Roy replied. Once we found that, they knew we would eventually learn the truth. They decided it was better to make contact on their terms. Kate looked worried. What if there are other species out there that aren't part of the Coalition? Species that might see humanity as a threat? That's a risk we'll have to manage, Admiral Thompson said. But according to the architect records, most of the dangerous species were contained or destroyed long ago. Alex pulled up a star chart. Most, but not all. There are a few systems marked with symbols we haven't translated yet. Unknown variables. Admiral Thompson studied the chart. Then we'd better hope the Coalition is willing to share more information about those systems. As the meeting ended, Roy looked out at the stars through the briefing room's small window. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the galaxy, an enemy was slowly making its way toward them. And humanity, the species that had been hidden for 50,000 years, would have to help lead the fight against it. But first, they had to prove they deserved to be part of galactic civilization. They had to show that the dangerous nature that had frightened the architects could be used to protect rather than destroy. The next few years would determine whether humanity became the galaxy's greatest defenders or its worst nightmare. Admiral Thompson made her final decision. Ladies and gentlemen, we're no longer hiding. It's time for humanity to step onto the galactic stage. Dr. Amy Carter stood in the Coalition research facility on Proxima Station, staring at holographic displays that showed human history from an alien perspective. For the past month, she had been working with Coalition scientists to understand exactly what the architects had seen in early humanity that made them so afraid. Commander Zara approached her workstation. Dr. Carter, have you finished reviewing the behavioral analysis files? Amy turned from the display, her face troubled. Zara, these records are unsettling. The architects didn't just study human technology or culture, they studied how we think. What did they find? Zara asked. Amy activated a new set of displays. Look at this comparison. The architects studied every intelligent species in the galaxy over millions of years. They measured things like aggression, adaptability, cooperation, and problem-solving ability. The holographic chart showed hundreds of species plotted on various scales. Most clustered together in predictable patterns, but one species stood far apart from all the others. Humans are completely outside the normal range, Amy continued. Most species score high in either aggression or cooperation, but not both. Humans score maximum in both categories. Zara studied the chart. That seems like it would be an advantage. That's what makes it terrifying, Amy replied. Most aggressive species are too violent to cooperate effectively. Most cooperative species are too peaceful to be militarily effective. Humans are the only species that can switch between extreme cooperation and extreme aggression as the situation requires. Dr. Ben Hayes joined their conversation. He had been working on translating the architects' psychological profiles of different species. Amy's right. The architects called it adaptive moral flexibility. Humans can justify almost any action if they believe it serves a greater good. Give me an example, Zara said. Ben pulled up historical records. Look at human warfare. Humans can fight with incredible brutality against their enemies while simultaneously showing compassion and mercy to civilians. They can sacrifice themselves for strangers while ruthlessly destroying those they see as threats. Amy added more data to the display. The architects were particularly concerned about human pack behavior. Most species form groups based on genetics or territory. Humans form groups based on shared ideas. Why is that concerning? Zara asked. Because it makes human groups incredibly stable and motivated, Amy explained. A human soldier doesn't fight just to defend his home. He fights to defend his beliefs, his values, his way of life. That makes them nearly impossible to defeat through normal means. Ben showed Zara recordings of early human tribes. The architects observed human hunters working together to bring down prey much larger and stronger than themselves. But what amazed them wasn't the cooperation. Many species cooperate. It was the innovation. What do you mean? Zara asked. Every time humans encountered a new challenge, they invented new solutions. Ben explained. New tools, new tactics, new strategies, and they shared these innovations with other groups, making the entire species more effective. Amy pulled up the architects' predictions about human development. Based on their observations of early humans, the architects created models of how our species would develop over time. The holographic display showed a timeline stretching from 50,000 years ago to the present day. The architect predictions were remarkably accurate. They predicted we would develop agriculture, then cities, then nation-states, Amy said. They predicted we would invent writing, mathematics, and eventually spaceflight. They also predicted our wars, Ben added grimly. The architects calculated that humans would fight over 300 major conflicts in the first 5,000 years of recorded history. Zara was shocked. 300 wars? Most species fight less than 10 major conflicts in their entire history. But here's what really frightened the architects, Amy said, highlighting another section of the timeline. They predicted that humans would become more dangerous as they became more civilized, not less. Most species become more peaceful as they advance, Ben explained. They develop philosophy, art, and science, and these pursuits replace their aggressive instincts. But humans developed philosophy and science that made them better at warfare. Amy showed Zara examples. Human military science, strategic thinking, logistics, engineering, all of these fields advanced alongside human art and culture. Humans created beautiful music and poetry while simultaneously inventing more effective ways to fight wars. Zara looked at the records of recent human conflicts. Your species fought 2 global wars in the 20th century alone, and learned from both of them, Amy replied. Each conflict taught humans new lessons about organization, technology, and strategy. The architects predicted that eventually humans would become so effective at warfare that no other species could resist them. Ben activated a new display showing the architects' assessment of human psychological traits. The architects identified several specific human characteristics that made them unique. First, Amy read from the file, humans have an unusual ability to maintain multiple contradictory beliefs simultaneously. This allows them to cooperate with groups they would normally compete with when facing a common threat. Second, Ben continued, humans show extreme persistence in pursuing long-term goals. Most species abandon difficult projects when they encounter obstacles. Humans see obstacles as problems to solve. Third, Amy added, humans can rapidly adapt their social structures to meet new challenges. Most species have fixed social hierarchies. Human organizations can change and evolve as needed. Zara was beginning to understand. So the architects saw humans as a species that could unite their entire planet and then expand throughout the galaxy. Exactly, Ben replied, and they predicted we would do it faster than any species in galactic history. Amy showed Zara the architect's timeline for human expansion. They predicted humans would reach the stars within 10,000 years of developing agriculture. Most species take 50 to 100,000 years. How accurate were their predictions? Zara asked. Remarkably accurate, Amy replied. They predicted humans would develop nuclear weapons in the 20th century, reach their moon by the 21st century, and begin interstellar travel by the 22nd century. Ben pulled up more disturbing files. But the architects weren't just concerned about human expansion. They were concerned about human influence on other species. What kind of influence? Zara asked. The architects predicted that contact with humans would change other species, Ben explained. Human ideas about individual rights, democratic governance, and scientific method would spread throughout the galaxy. Amy looked troubled. The architects saw this as potentially destabilizing. The galactic order they had created was based on species developing slowly and following established patterns. Human ideas could disrupt that system, so they hid us to protect their system of galactic management, Zara realized. Partly, Amy agreed, but they also hid us to protect other species. The architects calculated that if humans made contact with galactic civilization too early, we would either conquer it or provoke a galactic war. Ben showed Zara the architects' war scenarios. They ran thousands of simulations. In most scenarios where humans made early contact with the galaxy, the result was either human domination or the complete destruction of human civilization. Only in scenarios where humans were allowed to develop independently for 50,000 years did the simulation show successful integration, Amy added. Zara stared at the data. The architects weren't just afraid of human aggression, they were afraid of human success. They were afraid we would be too successful, Amy confirmed. Too adaptable, too innovative, too persistent. They feared we would change the galaxy in ways that couldn't be controlled or predicted. Ben pulled up the final file in the architect records about humanity. But there's something else. The architects also predicted that these same qualities that made humans dangerous would make them essential for fighting the Devourers. The Devourers are everything the architects feared in a species, Amy explained. Completely aggressive, infinitely adaptable, utterly persistent. The architects realized that only a species with similar qualities could stand against them. Zara understood now. So they hid humanity not just to protect the galaxy from you, but to preserve you as the galaxy's ultimate defense. We're their weapon of last resort, Ben said quietly. The species they created to fight an enemy they couldn't defeat themselves. Amy looked at Zara. The question is, are we ready to be that weapon? Or will we become the very thing the architects feared? Zara's expression was grave. That depends on what humanity chooses to do with the power it's been given. Commander Paul Anderson floated in zero gravity near the edge of Earth's solar system, his team working frantically to scan the massive alien structure they had discovered hidden behind Neptune. The device was enormous, larger than Earth's moon, and it had been sitting there undetected for 50,000 years. "Commander, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Kelly Brooks from her position near the structure's base. "I found an access port." Paul activated his suit's thrusters and moved to Kelly's position. The access port was clearly designed for smaller beings than humans, but their engineering team had managed to create an interface that could connect to the alien systems. "Have you been able to access their computer networks?" Paul asked. Dr. Tony Clark, the mission's technology specialist, looked up from his equipment. "I'm getting data streams now. This thing is still active, Commander. It's been running continuously for millennia." Paul felt a chill despite his suit's heating system. "Running what kind of operations?" "It appears to be some kind of concealment device," Tony replied, studying the incoming data. "It's been generating a field that hides Earth's radio emissions from the rest of the galaxy." Lieutenant Sandra Lopez joined them from her position on the other side of the structure. "Commander, we found 12 more devices like this one scattered throughout the outer solar system. They're all connected in a network." Paul activated his comm system to contact Earth. "Admiral Thompson, this is Commander Anderson. We found something significant out here." Admiral Thompson's voice crackled through the comm system. "Report, Commander. We've discovered a network of concealment devices throughout our solar system," Paul explained. "They've been hiding Earth from Galactic detection for 50,000 years. There was a long pause. Are you certain, Commander? Yes, ma'am. Dr. Clark has accessed their computer systems. These devices have been actively masking our planet's electromagnetic signature." Tony continued his analysis of the alien computer systems. "Commander, I'm finding detailed records of their operations. This network didn't just hide our radio signals, it masked our planet's biosignature, our atmospheric composition, even our gravitational effects on nearby objects." Kelly was examining the physical structure of the device. "The construction is incredible. It's made of the same crystal material as the Architect monitoring stations, but the technology is far more advanced." Paul studied the readings on his tablet. "How effective was this concealment?" "Completely effective," Tony replied. "Any alien ship passing through our solar system would detect the sun and the planets, but Earth would appear to be a lifeless rock. No signs of atmosphere, no electromagnetic activity, no indication that intelligent life existed here." Sandra had been exploring the network connections between devices. "Commander, these machines were designed to last. They have self-repair, systems, and backup power sources. The architects built them to operate for hundreds of thousands of years." Paul realized the implications. So for 50,000 years, alien species could have visited our solar system and never known we were here. "That's correct," Tony confirmed. "And according to these records, several species did visit. The devices logged at least 47 different alien ships that passed through our solar system over the millennia." "And none of them detected Earth?" Paul asked. "None of them detected intelligent life on Earth," Tony clarified. "The devices made Earth appear completely uninhabitable." Kelly found additional data archives within the device. "Commander, I'm finding records of the device's installation. The architects didn't just hide us, they studied us constantly." "What do you mean?" Paul asked. Kelly showed him the data streams. "These devices were monitoring human development the entire time. They were concealing us. Every major event in human history was recorded and transmitted to the Architect network." Tony pulled up historical files. "Look at this. They recorded the development of agriculture, the rise of civilizations, the invention of writing, mathematics, science. Everything." Paul felt a mix of awe and violation. "They were watching us like laboratory animals." "It gets worse," Sandra said, finding more files. "The devices didn't just monitor us. They occasionally interfered with human development." "Interfered how?" Paul demanded. Sandra showed him the records. "They influenced weather patterns to cause droughts that prevented certain civilizations from becoming too powerful too quickly. They redirected asteroids that might have caused extinction events. They even influenced human genetic development." Tony was reading through technical specifications. "These devices could generate localized electromagnetic fields, influence solar, radiation, even affect quantum probability within the solar system." Paul stared at the massive alien structure. "So the architects weren't just hiding us. They were controlling our entire development." "They were gardeners," Kelly realized, "and humanity was their crop." Paul contacted Earth again. "Admiral Thompson, the situation is more complex than we thought. The architects didn't just hide us. They've been managing human development for 50,000 years. Admiral Thompson's voice was tight with concern. "Explain, Commander." "These devices have been manipulating everything from our climate to our genetics," Paul reported. "They prevented us from developing too quickly and protected us from natural disasters that might have destroyed us." "Are the devices still active?" Admiral Thompson asked. Tony checked his readings. "Yes, ma'am. But they're starting to fail. The power systems are degrading after 50,000 years of operation. Paul studied the technical readouts. How long before they stop working? Based on the rate of degradation, I estimate 5 to 10 years before complete system failure, Tony replied. Paul realized what this meant. Admiral, when these devices fail, Earth will become visible to the entire galaxy. Admiral Thompson was quiet for a moment. Commander, can the devices be repaired? Tony studied the technical specifications. Theoretically, yes, but it would require technology we don't currently possess. We'd need to understand architect crystal technology at a fundamental level. Sandra found more disturbing information. Commander, there's something else. The devices were programmed with shutdown criteria. What kind of criteria? Paul asked. Sandra read from the files. The architects programmed the devices to automatically shut down when humanity reached certain development milestones. What milestones? Paul demanded. Interstellar travel, contact with alien species, or discovery of the concealment network itself? Sandra replied. Paul felt his stomach drop. You mean by finding these devices we've triggered their shutdown? Tony checked the system status. Affirmative, Commander. The network is already beginning shutdown procedures. We have maybe 6 months before the concealment field collapses completely. Paul contacted Earth immediately. Admiral Thompson, we have a problem. The devices are programmed to shut down now that we've discovered them. Earth will be visible to the galaxy within 6 months. Admiral Thompson's response was immediate. Commander, I want you and your team back on Earth immediately. We need to accelerate our contact with the Coalition. As Paul and his team prepared to leave the alien device, he took one last look at the massive structure. For 50,000 years, it had protected humanity from the galaxy while allowing them to develop in isolation. Soon, that protection would be gone. Humanity would be revealed to galactic civilization whether they were ready or not. Tony, Paul said, make sure you download everything from these devices. Every file, every record, every technical specification. Already on it, Commander, Tony replied. If we're going to survive without this protection, we need to understand exactly what the architects did to help us. Kelly was studying the star. Charts displayed on the device. Commander, look at this. The devices weren't just hiding us from random alien visitors. They were specifically hiding us from Coalition patrol ships. Paul looked at the patrol routes displayed on the alien charts. Coalition ships had been regularly monitoring nearby star systems for thousands of years, but their routes always avoided Earth's solar system. The architects made sure the Coalition would never accidentally discover us, Paul realized. Sandra found the final piece of the puzzle. Commander, there's a message here. A recording left by the architects specifically for humanity. Play it, Paul ordered. The recording began in a language they didn't recognize, but the universal translator in the device soon provided a translation. The voice was clearly artificial, but somehow conveyed wisdom and sadness. Children of Earth, the voice began. If you are hearing this message, then your species has reached the point where concealment is no longer possible or necessary. We have watched you grow from primitive hunters to spacefaring explorers. We have protected you from the galaxy and from yourselves. The recording paused, then continued. Now you must take your place among the stars. Use the strength that made us fear you to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Use the wisdom you have gained to avoid the mistakes we made. Paul listened as the architect voice delivered its final message to humanity. Remember that power without compassion is tyranny, but compassion without power is helplessness. You are the balance between these extremes. You are what we could never be. The recording ended, leaving Paul and his team floating in silence beside the massive alien device. President Janet Mitchell stood before the assembled leaders of Earth in the United Nations building in New York. The emergency session had brought together every nation's representative to discuss humanity's future in the galaxy. The weight of 50,000 years of hidden history rested on the decisions they would make today. Ladies and gentlemen, President Mitchell began, 6 months ago, we discovered that Earth has been deliberately hidden from galactic civilization for 50,000 years. Today we must decide how humanity will reveal itself to the stars. Admiral Grace Thompson activated the holographic displays showing the data collected from the architect concealment devices. The alien network that has been protecting us is failing. Within 3 months, Earth will become fully visible to every species in the galaxy. Dr. Amy Carter stepped forward to address the assembly. We have 2 choices. We can attempt to repair the architect concealment technology and remain hidden, or we can shut down the devices ourselves and announce our presence to the galaxy. Prime Minister David Chen of the European Federation raised his hand. Dr. Carter, what are the risks of each option? Amy consulted her notes. If we remain hidden, we maintain our safety, but we also remain isolated. We would continue developing alone, but we would never benefit from galactic technology and knowledge. And if we reveal ourselves, asked President Maria Santos of the South American Alliance. We risk everything, Admiral Thompson replied honestly. Some species in the galaxy may see us as a threat. The Coalition has peaceful intentions, but there are other groups we know little about. Commander Zara, who had been invited to address the Earth Assembly, stood up from her position in the observer section. If I may speak, President Mitchell? Please, Commander Zara. Your perspective is valuable. Zara moved to the center of the assembly. Leaders of Earth, the Coalition has debated humanity's future for decades. Some of our members believe you should remain hidden until you prove yourselves peaceful. Others believe you should be contained like other dangerous species. The assembly erupted in worried murmurs. President Mitchell called for order. However, Zara continued, recent events have changed our perspective. The discovery of the architect warnings about the devourers has made many Coalition members realize that hiding humanity may no longer be an option. Secretary General Robert E. Kim of the Asian Cooperative asked, what has changed the Coalition's mind about us? Zara activated her own display, showing recent developments in Coalition space. 3 months ago, our monitoring stations detected unusual activity beyond the galactic edge. Objects moving toward our galaxy at incredible speed. Amy felt her blood turn cold. The devourers? We believe so, Zara confirmed. The objects match the architect descriptions. They appear to be scout ships, which means the main force is still years away, but they are coming. Admiral Thompson leaned forward. How much time do we have? Based on their current speed, we estimate 15 to 20 years before they reach the outer rim of our galaxy, Zara replied. But preparation must begin immediately. President Mitchell addressed the assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears our choice has been made for us. We can no longer afford to remain hidden. Prime Minister Elizabeth Walker of the African Union stood up. What does the Coalition expect from humanity in this coming conflict? Zara's expression was grave. The architect plans are clear. Humanity must provide military leadership for the galactic defense. Your species' unique combination of aggression and adaptability makes you the only force capable of standing against the devourers. And if we refuse, asked President Mitchell. Then the galaxy falls, Zara replied simply. The coalition has maintained peace for 50,000 years, but we are not warriors. We do not know how to fight an enemy like the Devourers. Dr. Ben Hayes, who had been studying architect military records, stood up. The Devourers aren't just another aggressive species. They are perfect predators. They adapt to any defense, overwhelm any resistance, and consume everything in their path. Admiral Thompson activated displays showing the architect battle simulations. According to these records, conventional military tactics are useless against them. Only human-style warfare has any chance of success. What do you mean by human-style? Warfare? Asked Prime Minister Chen. Captain Roy Jenkins, who had returned from his latest mission to Coalition space, answered. Asymmetric tactics, rapid adaptation, and the willingness to make sacrifices for long-term strategic goals. Humans fight wars differently than any other species. Amy added. The architects studied human military history extensively. They were particularly interested in how humans could turn defeats into victories and how we adapt our tactics during conflicts. Zara nodded. Coalition species fight to defend their territory and then negotiate when they encounter strong resistance. Humans fight until they achieve their objectives, regardless of cost. That sounds like we're being asked to be the galaxy's attack dogs, observed President Santos. You're being asked to be the galaxy's survivors, Zara corrected. The Devourers don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they don't show mercy. Only a species with similar determination can stand against them. President Mitchell looked around the assembly. If we accept this responsibility, what support can we expect from the Coalition? Zara activated new displays showing Coalition resources. Complete access to our technology, our industrial capacity, and our scientific knowledge. The Coalition has agreed to provide whatever humanity needs to prepare for this war. Admiral Thompson studied the Coalition technology. Their manufacturing capabilities are incredible. With their support, we could build a defense fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Dr. Carter raised a concern. But what happens after the war? If humanity becomes the galaxy's military force, how do we prevent ourselves from becoming the very threat the architects feared? The assembly fell silent as everyone considered this question. Commander Paul Anderson, who had discovered the concealment devices, spoke up. The architects left us a message. They said we were the balance between power and compassion. Maybe that's our answer. Explain, President Mitchell requested. Paul stood up to address the assembly. The architects feared us because we could be either protectors or conquerors. The choice is ours. We can use our strength to defend the galaxy, or we can use it to dominate it. Zara looked at the human leaders. The Coalition is willing to trust humanity with this responsibility, but only if you prove you can be trusted. How do we prove that? Asked Secretary General Kim. By choosing to reveal yourselves voluntarily, Zara replied. By working with the Coalition as equals, not as rulers. By using your power to protect those who cannot protect themselves. President Mitchell called for a brief recess to allow the regional leaders to discuss their positions. When the assembly reconvened, she asked for each region's decision. One by one, the leaders of Earth's regions cast their votes. The European Federation chose to reveal humanity to the galaxy. The Asian Cooperative agreed. The African Union voted to step onto the galactic stage. The South American Alliance supported integration with galactic civilization. Finally, President Mitchell cast the deciding vote for the North American Republic. The United States chooses to join our fellow humans in revealing ourselves to the galaxy. The assembly erupted in applause as humanity made its historic decision. Admiral Thompson stood up. "Commander Zara, on behalf of humanity, we accept our responsibility to help defend the galaxy against the Devourers." Zara smiled for the first time since arriving on Earth. "Then let us begin preparations immediately. We have much work to do." Dr. Carter activated the Global Communication Network. "Citizens of Earth, this is Dr. Amy Carter speaking from the United Nations. Today, humanity has chosen to step out of the shadows and take our place among the stars." As her words reached every corner of the planet, Amy continued, "For 50,000 years we have been hidden from the galaxy while we grew and learned. Now we have the chance to use that growth to protect not just ourselves, but all intelligent life." President Mitchell joined Amy at the communication station. "My fellow humans, we stand at the threshold of a new age. We are no longer alone in the universe, and we are no longer hiding from it." Admiral Thompson began issuing orders to prepare Earth's defenses and begin integration with coalition technology. Ships would be built, alliances would be forged, and humanity would prepare for the greatest challenge in galactic history. Commander Anderson looked out at the stars through the assembly hall's great windows. In 20 years, those stars would be threatened by an enemy unlike any the galaxy had ever faced. But for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy would have humanity fighting alongside it. Zara approached Amy as the assembly began to disperse. "Dr. Carter, are you ready for what comes next?" Amy looked at the architect crystal, which still glowed softly on the display table. "Commander Zara, humanity has been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years. We just didn't know it." "The architects chose well," Zara said. "Now let us hope their faith in your species was justified." As Earth's leaders began the work of revealing humanity to the galaxy, Amy thought about the architect message. They had called humans the balance between power and compassion. Soon the entire galaxy would discover whether that balance would be their salvation or their doom. The age of human concealment